This is Brian, ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is 2020's Train to Busan presents Peninsula, which is the sequel to 2018's Train to Busan, directed by ho-Yeon. And this is a really good movie, though don't go into this expecting to see Train to Busan 2. It takes place in the same universe as Train to Busan, but it is not the same movie. If I were to compare it to something, I'd have to say it's very similar to Neil Marshall's 2008 movie Doomsday. Though, if you've seen that movie, it doesn't work very well. It's a mixture of lots of different genres. It's the virus thriller. It almost has a medieval type feel to it at points. It's a lot of different things, and also I should mention, it's very much Mad Max. It's a lot of different things thrown together, none of them working particularly well. It's not a bad movie, it's certainly worth seeing because Neil Marshall. But that being said, it doesn't accomplish its goal very well. Peninsula is another matter entirely. It too is a combination of lots of disparate elements. There are elements of John Carpenter's Escape from New York. There are elements of Mad Max. There are elements of the Fast and the fucking Furious, for Christ's sakes. And I mentioned John Carpenter's Escape from New York earlier because this movie is literally an homage to that movie. And it works really well. In fact, this whole movie works really well. Though for me, what's most interesting about it is that it's genuinely joyous at times. It's funny and engaging at moments without being infantile and silly. It's quite a feat actually. That Peninsula works as well as it does is a commentary on the directorial powers of ho-Yeon, and they are at their peak. As I said, this is a great movie. The story takes place about 4 years, if I recall, after events of Train to Busan, which is to say that it's been determined that Korea was the source of this infection. It apparently hasn't spread beyond Korea, and the world has acted to make sure that that remains the case by essentially evacuating anyone that could be taken to Hong Kong. And Korea, while not walled off like in the case of B-13 or Escape from New York, is very much isolated from the rest of the world. It's been determined by some shady characters that there's some money there though, and people being people, they assemble a team to get the money. They don't care anything about what's going on in Korea beyond that. So a team is assembled and they eventually arrive in Korea. And this is where the movie shines, namely its production design. It looks like the director has taken, in some shots, actual sections of South Korea and shot in them. Other times, it looks like it's probably a studio. The more outlandish the setup is, the greater the likelihood we're talking about a studio where more variables can be controlled. But that being said, the transition isn't always easy to see. It just looks great. And so they create this almost hellscape, if you will, of South Korea. It looks really interesting with abandoned cars and buildings, very dark, decrepit, and it's just a very strong movie from a visual standpoint. And as I've talked about before, I'm not particularly fond of the hyperactive zombie. I think it defeats the entire purpose of a zombie, and it makes no sense to boot. Though, to be fair, we are talking about zombies, which also make no sense. But in any case, what he does with them here is really, really interesting. He oftentimes uses people to play zombies who have to be some type of acrobat or contortionist, because in that movie and in this one, there are occasionally zombies that are inordinately flexible, and their bodies move in ways that a normal person can't. Well, I should say, in ways that most people cannot. It's really unnerving and very odd looking. And you see instances of that in this movie as well. So the zombies are interesting, and there are quite a few CGI zombies. But ho-Yeon is clever enough to use digital doubles at a distance. So you don't really see them that closely. All the close-up shots are practical, which is to say you have people made up as zombies. Distance shots tend to be CGI zombies. And so it doesn't take you out of the movie because they look from a distance pretty convincing. They'll be running or doing something or another, but you don't see them very close up. But in any case, as I was saying, this group of people land in South Korea, and they go about trying to find this money. They eventually do, and it should go without saying their plan goes tits up relatively quickly. And this movie, at this point, is such a homage to John Carpenter's Escape to New York, it's crazy. But that's not where it stops. Like I said, it seems to take on Fast and the Furious. It seems to take on Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome in particular. It's just fascinating the way it does this, because if you hadn't seen all those movies, it would not make a ripple. I have. So therefore, it's like, whoa, this is from there, that's from there. Really interesting stuff. It's such a clever movie, and that it has its influences entirely on its sleeve, yet manages to still be successful. For me, it's just icing on a cake. It just works really well. Though, as I said earlier, don't watch this movie expecting Train to Busan. It's not that. It's an entirely different animal. It's a lot more fun, less somber, and the story itself is really clever. And it does something that should be commonplace but isn't, which is to say, you see something at the beginning that pays off at the end. The story is very much a circle, but it's very well done, and events conclude in a very satisfying fashion. Does everything make sense? No, not really. But the lapses in logic, keep in mind, we are talking about movies about zombies. The lapses in logic are relatively small. On the whole, this movie works like a well-oiled machine. And in fact, it works so well, there's a minor scene where a character is, if I recall, loading a semi-automatic rifle of some sorts. The scene is edited not that well. It's actually kind of choppy. But the whole movie is so well put together that one scene slightly off kind of draws attention to itself. It's done that well. And so, if you haven't seen Peninsula, check it out. Easily one of the better sequels made. It's fun, it's sad, it's engaging, it's well done. This is everything you want to see in an infected movie, because zombies don't run. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? As usual, let me know down below. And since you're there, consider a like or a follow. Peace.